Got
Awesome.
it.
Cool.
Take us
Um,
away, Matt.
yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to On the Cutting Room Floor. This is episode 2. I'm Matt here with my co-host Lex. Lex, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be back. We didn't crash and burn after
Not yet.
after Athena.
We're still flying high. For how long? Who
Exactly.
knows? But we'll see. We'll see. I'm really excited for today. We're talking about Dune Part 2. This is a movie that both of us have been looking forward to for a long time. Um, yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the movie, some other stuff. We were both a big fan of Part 1, so
Yes.
coming into this, very high hopes, high expectations. So I'm
Oh
really
yeah.
excited to see what you thought about it. We both saw it on our own, not together, unfortunately. So it'll be really interesting to kind of dive deep into the different scenes and see what all that we liked, possibly disliked. But yeah, I guess like a quick review on my end. I really liked it, top notch. I thought it was a great continuation to part one.
hmm
I thought it kind of concluded at least the first book in a sense. Whether they go on to do a part three with Dune Messiah or whatnot, I think even if they don't, I think part one and part two are perfect together. I just thought walking out of the theater after seeing this movie, I was like, I can't wait for this to be on Blu-ray so I can just watch part one and part two back to back. Have
Yep.
just like a
Yep.
one day off for like 6 hours of just Dune. I'm doing it eventually once the Blu-ray comes out because I really want to see these movies back to back because I think it would
Uh,
be really great. One question I have for you, Lex. How was your theater experience? I assume that your theater was probably packed, as was mine. How was your theater experience? What was the vibe?
yeah. Theater experience was really. I. It was really good. There hasn't been too many packed movies I've gone to recently. Besides Oppenheimer
Yep.
and besides Barbie. And out of those three, this has been the best theater experience.
Hmm.
Um, everyone was, thoroughly, I felt invested in the movie. It was very silent, not many, not talking. I think the only one scene had people have any audible response, and that was the fight scene between Paul and the Harkonnen. I forget his name. Austin Butler's
Awesome
character.
bonus character. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's one specific point in that scene where the people were going like, "Ooh," like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that was a
like
great scene.
audible. Which was cool. I do like that audible response people get from watching film, but it wasn't like annoying. There wasn't people taking photos or like talking a bunch. It was pretty good all around theater experience. Did not get to see it in IMAX,
Yeah.
sadly, um, but still saw it on a massive screen. Crazy theater is really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I had a similar experience. I also didn't see it in IMAX. I'm kind of planning on going back and hopefully seeing it again, hopefully at IMAX that time. But yeah, I had a very similar experience, packed theater, which is kind of very rare nowadays. It's good to see that like movie theaters kind of like becoming packed again.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was really cool. It was kind of a big age range too. Like there were some like younger people there, some older people too. There was two dudes next to me that were like super into the books. Like they were talking about like the books and kind of like what they were expecting and stuff like that. And then I had like a bunch of teenagers behind me being like, oh, they were like really enjoyed the first one. And then like when I was walking out of the theater, there were like a bunch of like junior high and younger kids that were like, this is so much better than Star Wars and stuff like that. So it's really cool to kind of see like this new generation of like a trilogy that is really good from a director who kind of really knows what he wants to do with it. So that was really exciting. Kind of just like being a part of like a moment, hopefully similar to like something like my when my parents like went to go see Star Wars, kind of like having that same feeling and being like this is kind of like a generational kind of event is really cool.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, definitely. It's really also really cool to see more kind of thought-provoking movies kind of being kind of the main focus point of Hollywood right now, especially like after Oppenheimer. I kind of expected Oppenheimer to be really good, not in terms of not just kind of quality, but also in terms of like box office numbers and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was interesting because I thought it was interesting because I thought that maybe it wouldn't do so well, possibly just because it's very different in terms of all the stuff that Nolan did or previously. It's a lot more kind of like slower, a lot more of like a thought piece, I guess, in a sense. But just seeing
Yeah.
how well that movie did, just like the general audience, was just awesome, and kind of just seeing this kind of new age of movies that we're getting is really
Mhm.
exciting to me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
so
I entirely agree on that. It's really cool seeing kind of gambles when it comes to cinematography and scene setup as well. I feel like there's a lot more moments of silence
mhm,
in the movies we've been seeing. A lot more very unique choices with cinematography as well as just everything. Like we saw, I think kind of one of the big ones that stuck out in I guess the blockbuster world would have been the Batman.
mhm,
How
yeah,
the scene was cluttered, the frame is dirty, as they said, and then from there we have the Dune movies, which really went for like I don't even almost just like paintings.
mhm,
For
yeah,
each frame seemed like it was a painting type deal while still feeling authentic. It wasn't like, you see Paul walk into a room and people are standing unnaturally just to get off like a Wes Anderson look, which,
yeah,
works in Wes Anderson, but it wouldn't work in Dune. And it was really cool to see all these different choices being made as well as with the characters. Like especially in Dune Part 2, you there are decisions being made by characters who are our protagonists, which the audience I don't think would agree with or think is morally okay.
mhm,
And those decisions and those character moments, character flaws and decisions happening really make them feel lifelike and like, yeah, they're not going to be the goody two shoes 24/7 doing X, Y, and Z. Like they're going to have moments of passion, revenge, um, selfish decisions, all sorts of things. So big
yeah,
fan of that.
totally, yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting because I remember a lot of like reviewers or just like comments on after the first movie came out of people just being kind of like, one of the biggest criticisms of is Paul being like this white knight or whatnot, or like this like messiah, like this white figure on this like
Yeah,
desert planet. And then like all the people that read the books are like, that's not how this goes down. Like Paul is a very
yeah,
troubled character, especially towards the end,
yeah.
and we really do get to see that in this part two, and then probably even more so if part three ever comes out with Messiah. So yeah, that was really
Uh,
really exciting.
Dennis, the writer and director, he said that they have part three done. He
Mm,
would like to do Dune Messiah, but it's just essentially waiting on Warner Brothers
yeah,
to see if anything happens
it
with it.
has to be greenlit. Like this movie's gonna make money. I you know,
Yeah, I honestly I think they're just waiting to see how opening weekend goes and how the reception is. Because even though Dune Part One was insanely good and won Oscars, it wasn't the biggest financial win for Warner Brothers, if I remember correctly, but probably not. But Dune Two was almost more of a gamble to see if people are still interested in
yeah.
this. If Dune One was just a one-off, but then I'm also worried that we won't get a part three because the director doesn't really do trilogies. The closest he's done to that is Sicario,
Hmm.
and he only did Sicario, and then Sicario Dave Soldado was a completely different writer and director.
I feel like Dune really is different though, because it's I feel like for him it's very much a passion project, and it seemed
Oh
like
yeah,
from the get go he wanted to just do two parts, but it seemed like there was a lot more that he wanted to say. So I think for him it seemed like a part three might make sense, but
yeah.
no, I definitely think this movie's gonna make more money than part one. Um,
Oh, 100%.
so
Especially, I think part one was a lot more between the two, I feel part one was a lot more experimental,
mhm,
with how there's a lot less action. There's a lot more action happening off screen, especially with the first charge of House Atreides versus the Harkonnens. It all is coming together. That giant ship falls, massive explosion, cuts to a different area. So you don't see that, but now they went all in on like the actual grand scale battles, which I thought was really cool.
mhm.
Um, so even if this is an out there movie by Hollywood standards as it is. So I think even though it's still out there, it's a lot closer to like what somebody is normally expecting with a sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
even
no,
though
definitely.
it's still way out there. And
Mhm.
also, I just realized I didn't plug in my microphone.
Oh no.
I am getting feedback, but I forgot to plug in my headset, which means that we're hearing you as well. So let me do that real quick.
Oh my goodness, technical difficulties here. I got things are quick. Should we restart it or should we keep going?
Hopefully this works.
Oh, there
Hello.
we go. Yeah, now we got the better mic.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, we got
Yeah.
a different
Because
mic, I should say.
yeah, I was using my blue snowball, and I was like, why am I getting feedback
Yeah,
from when
yeah.
Matt is
I thought
speaking?
I thought it sounded different. I was like, what's happening?
Did it sound a little more far away or
It
quieter?
wasn't terrible. Like the audio quality wasn't terrible, but it definitely
Yeah.
sounded a little different.
Actually, before we move on, let me grab this real quick to show the.
Oh, you got the old school one. Look at that. I like how shiny it is. Have you?
I love
I've
this
never
photo.
seen the old one. I'm scared to.
Never.
I'm scared to see
It's
it.
so it's got its own thing. I mean, it's David
Yeah.
Lynch, so it's
Hmm.
definitely weird. There's a lot of the way he addresses the prophecy sequences or the dream sequences, visions, insane. I would highly recommend watching it though, just because it's a slice of history.
Yeah.
Man, it's so it's so
Maybe we'll
good.
have to repeat that one sometime. I think that'd be fun.
I was gonna say you mentioned earlier you would love to do like a like the Dune Part One, Part Two watch
Yeah.
right after another. I was thinking I would watch this, then Dune Part One, then Dune Part Two. Let's dive into Dune Two, Part Two.
Part two, yeah, yeah. So, I guess we'll just talk about kind of how it opened. I was a little confused in the opening because we get Florence Pugh's character kind of
Mm,
doing this kind of diary entry about the fall of House Atreides and kind of a little bit of a recap of what happened in the
mhm,
first one, just for people who may have like forgotten a little bit. So, uh, that's kind of how it kicks off, and then right after that we go right into Paul's kind of situation of how where he ended up after
mhm,
the first movie. I was a little confused at first just because um I thought a lot more time had passed than what actually passed. Like we go
yeah.
right back into like Paul's POV like right after the first movie ends. And I would thought maybe there was a little bit of a time jump here, just kind of like
Mhm,
we see him kind of a little bit more trained in like the Fremen ways, but like he's still kind of like an outcast. Like he doesn't really know the Fremen
mhm,
at all.
mhm,
Part of me, we'll kind of like get a little bit into like some of my like really small criticisms of the movie, but
mhm.
I think kind of seeing him kind of become a part of the Fremen, kind of figuring out like their culture and kind of like how they survive the desert, I think is just really cool. I think that was one of the aspects of the movie that I think they did really well. Especially kind of
Mhm.
the very beginning. I think the very beginning also has one of my favorite scenes too, where you get like the Harkonnens and they're in the desert and you just like see them float up on this rock. I
Yeah,
love that scene. I saw that scene and I was
yeah.
like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that scene was great. And just like all the sound effects that went into that scene too. I'm just like it was like, and then they like floated up. It's so cool. It's such a cool scene.
Chills,
Those like
absolute
outfits,
chills.
those outfits are awesome too. I love those outfits.
Yeah.
So
So
cool.
that was gosh, I don't want to dive too much in over what was already said, but the Florence Pugh, I thought that was a good way to do the actual recap,
Hmm.
almost exposition dump of the previous one, keeping people on track with what happened, while also introducing the big characters of this movie, new characters that
Hmm.
is, to then the jump to Paul, and that scene with the Harkonnens. Like you, I had that little confusion with the time jump, I would say, which like you said, we'll go into, I guess, like the little things later on. Which, even though before that, I just want to say it's so cool that this movie does not have big issues. Like we
No,
essentially have
yeah.
to go to like these really small, almost nitpicking to be like, this is what I kind of didn't like. But even so, in the movie, it works.
Hmm.
It works, and the sound design insane as well in that scene. How everyone looks, the costume design, everything beautiful. I kept getting Destiny, like Destiny 1
A
and
little
2, the
bit.
video
Yeah,
game
yeah. I felt that
vibes
too. Hmm.
from especially I remember in the first one there was when they're going through like the history of Arrakis and when the Harkonnens are in control. There's a shot of like one of the spice miners in the background. Then there's an individual with like this really interesting mixture of like futuristic armor, this cloak, and then this rifle, which I was like, that's Destiny. Like
Hmm.
I've seen this in a video game before. This is so cool. But besides the point, that scene was awesome, dude. Like the levitation looked really good. It was a really clean way I thought of showing something that was kind of I didn't think the best explained in the book.
Yeah.
And I mean the tension building was so well done in that scene.
And I think there's an eclipse that happens during this scene too. Is that later? Or am I going crazy?
I thought that was later.
It might be
The
later.
eclipse specific. I to be honest, I would have to because I'm still like reeling from
Yeah.
the movie. Hold on, I'm gonna do a cheat sheet here. I'm gonna open up the score of the movie.
Are you gonna be able to find it
I
through the
think
score?
Yep, I think it is the because it goes beginnings are such delicate times. That's the first track, and then the second track by Hans is Eclipse.
Oh,
I
let's
think this
go!
is I think this is the Eclipse.
That's great. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I think the cinematography is great in this movie, and I think that it's so hard to make this movie look good just because of its full on desert, especially this part.
Yes.
It's like we don't get Caladan, like the homeworld of Atreides, which was like very beautiful, very water filled, and we don't really
Mhm.
get the halls of like the Arrakis, where like the Atreides were staying. Like it's like full on desert. Besides the point where we go back to
The siege,
the Harkin, yeah, the siege, and like the whole like the
Harkonnen world
tournament,
as well.
yeah, the tournament area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Most of this movie is like full on desert, and I think that's really hard to film and make look interesting. But this movie does it so beautifully. This movie's so pretty.
Yes. I think with the color grading of the movie, it really helps. But I also think that whoever the cinematographer was, um, they basically just kind of understood that the desert has its own innate beauty and to
Hmm.
let it do its thing. Because there are points where you get like a zoomed out shot of Paul or Fremen walking in the sand, and it's just stunning. You do sit back and you're like that. It's an entire planet of that, and they're just specks on this whole thing. And I think that was like just letting the strength of the desert, the sun, sand playing in the sunlight, things like that, the rocks that pop up throughout this landscape, the massive mountains, letting that be its own architecture, I think was a really, really good decision.
And kind of like going off that, I thought all the CGI in this movie was like seamless. Like if someone told me there was no CGI in this movie, I might believe them. Like it was so
Yeah.
good. It it looked real. Like it never took me out. Like every single scene looked incredible.
Hmm.
And I think it would have been really easy for them to kind of. I think maybe it's just because they never like overplay it, even during like the more like bigger VFX scenes. A lot of it is kind of surrounded by more practical effects, and I think that might have
Yes.
to do with it. But even so, like some of the more like heavier
Hmm.
VFX scenes looked absolutely like incredible, especially like during like the fighting scenes. And we'll probably like go into like the worm riding scene later on. I actually we'll just go into it now. That scene I think was also one of the best parts of the movie. Like that, I
It
was waiting for
was.
that scene
Oh,
because I remember it in the book, and I was expecting it to be really good, but it was so cool and it felt so real.
yes, yes. This I think so. There's many a times in the movie where my tears started like welling up, not because it was sad, even though there were sad points, but like it was just so beautiful or just awe inspiring that I was just like, whoa, hold on. And that was one of the scenes. And I think I expected like, okay, we've only seen like brief glimpses of the worms thus far, and the only clear shot we got of one in the first one was we didn't get a full thing of it was just the head rearing up and looking at Paul. And in this one, I was like, okay, we're gonna have the worm riding scene. Is it gonna be janky? And I think having the decision of, I mean, really just the practical of like, there's this giant creature just crashing through these sand dunes. Of course, sand's gonna be flying everywhere. I think that's the big thing. Whenever they're doing these massive scenes of CGI, like you said, it's surrounded by practical effects, yes, but they're also realistically blocking off what would happen. You of course when you have this, you know, skyscraper-sized worm crash into the sand, of course it's going to cause all these sand clouds and mini sandstorms to happen. So that's what I thought was really well done. The sound design was great. I love how they cut the music for it and just let it be like this torrential roar of wind and sand happening. I don't know. It was just so well done. It was
Yeah.
so well done.
I saw somebody commented on a video that I was watching about the movie. Someone was talking about how Paul, when he's like waiting for the worm and he's on the dune and he kind of like paces back and forth, it mirrors kind of. They talk about in the first one that his grandfather was a bullfighter, and I think like that it kind of mirrors that scene. Like that's Paul's like bullfight, you know. And
Yes.
I think
Oh yes.
when I saw that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because there's so much imagery of like the bull in the first movie and kind of like this fight that's about to happen, and it creates a lot of tension in the first one. But a lot of that tension was towards Duke Leto's character and kind of his downfall. But I think this movie kind of more heavily focuses more on Paul and his journey as he kind of finds
Yes.
himself or kind of destroys himself in a sense too. So I thought that was a really cool kind of connection between the two movies.
Oh,
Kind
I
of
100% agree with that.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Um, I think two differences. I think the first movie really kind of centers more on like the political side of Dune. Not saying that the second part doesn't kind of deal with a lot of those elements, but I think the second part really kind of focuses more on like religious elements, kind of religion and kind of there was elements of this movie, especially Paul's mother, her character. I thought it was so terrifying. It just like
Yes.
from early on, just like seeing what she was doing and kind of what she was becoming, I was like,
Mm,
wow, this is really terrifying, and it really kind of speaks
mm,
on what someone can do to a group, especially when you combine religion and kind of beliefs and kind of myths and stuff like that, and you
mm.
see this kind of tension as like Paul's mother's trying to make Paul into something, but Paul really wants to be something else, and that
Yep.
tension between the two. I would really say that like in a certain sense, the mother kind of is the villain of this film in a certain sense,
Hmm.
you know, because it's
Yeah.
also like the person that we kind of like spend the most time with. Like we spend like a lot of time with like the Harkonnens, and the Harkonnens are kind of painted as like the bad guys of this film, like very like heavily like these are the bad guys. But I think like underneath that, you have a lot more layers of kind of the Bene Gesserits and kind of like how
Yes.
they're scheming and kind of you get a lot more of like the Bene Gesserits.
Schemes
It was
within
kind of like
schemes.
yeah, just kind of seeing more
Yep.
of their characters of like Florence Pugh's character and how
Mm.
she kind of like revolves around all of that and just kind of seeing how they're trying to fix this mess that they're creating after they find out like the aftermath of like the fall of the House of the Atreides and kind of seeing all that and just seeing how Paul's mother's trying to upend that. I thought that was really interesting. What were your thoughts on kind of the religious elements of this film?
Yeah. So, first, I thought this, like you said, the first one was a lot more focused on the political side. This, while the first one I think highlighted the religious and Bene Gesserits being kind of behind everything.
It kind of teases
Um,
it, and this is kind
it
of like the
teases
full
it.
platter, you know.
This I think is really highlighting the fallout of that,
Mm-hmm.
where the fallout of the politics, the fallout of the Bene Gesserit's plans and schemings for centuries, and the fallout of religion, religious control as well, and the power of faith. So I really like how they kind of dove into the plans within plans and show the flip side of what's going on, where the emperor says, oh, I had the house of Atreides killed because the duke he was a weak man, so I had to end him. Well, then the Bene Gesserits, the Reverend Mother is talking about like we had to end this because we have multiple bloodlines going on of who could be the chosen one
Hmm.
type deal, and they thought that this wasn't the right one, so they that's why they kind of schemed to end it. And then even with the Harkonnens, they're definitely the baddies of the movie, but it's not really they're the villains. They're just an antagonist. And
Mm-hmm.
even then, you see how the Bene Gesserits are working things behind the scene. I mean, you have that one, gosh, I forget her name, but the one Bene Gesserit
I'm
who,
forgetting
y-
everyone's names. I should have like made a like
yes, I
a,
should have
a
gotten a
paper.
list down. But where's that pamphlet that comes with the David Lynch movies? But showing her like go and very very rarely use the voice on Austin Butler's character. I think only once or twice, and it was just like, you know, follow me, get on your knees. That was it, like kneel
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
And everything else was her just actually just manipulating the guy, finding out his weaknesses, but also securing the bloodline. They said so.
Hmm.
You know, she has his heir coming at some point. I really like how it was showing the the power of faith throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, and also how I was about to sneeze.
Oh, I was like, what's happening?
I had to mute real quick. Um, but showing the power of faith and how it's strong, but it also could be misleading,
Mm.
especially in the facts of like Paul's mother taking the water of life, which is poison, and then she doesn't die, and everyone's like, "This is crazy. This is how the prophecy foretold." And then she's like, "What?" And Paul says, "Well, my mom's a Bene Gesserit. Like they train to have their bodies expel poison. That's why
Hmm.
she didn't die." And then, and he's like, "Oh yeah, and I'm not the prophet. I'm not the one you're looking after. This is not the one you're looking for." And then it like flashes to all of them talking, and they're like, "See, he's so humble. He doesn't even say
That was
that
a
he's the
great scene.
prophet."
Yeah.
And with everything, and even as somebody who's read the books, seen the movie, and is just just not in the story at all, I'm just watching it. There are points where you're like, okay, like yes, the Bene Gesserit are moving things behind the scenes on like he's gonna meet this person. We're gonna train him up enough so when he runs into this at XYZ. But then there are points where it's like, okay, how in the world are you gonna know that the biggest worm that has ever been seen on this planet is gonna be harnessed by Paul?
Hmm.
How are you gonna know that when he summons the Emperor, the biggest sandstorm ever happens that day? And so there are points where you're like, okay, where it is like what a lot of the younger characters in the Fremen, you kind of see their journey because towards the beginning of the movie, you see that there's a definite class divide or age divide of like here's
Yeah.
the middle
Hmm.
aged to elders who are all in on the prophecy, and the young skeptics then turning into
More like the rebels
the
and the soldiers.
yeah, and then they fall in line to be like, yes, the prophecy's real. And I thought it was interesting critique on like how the how after seeing things that could be interpreted as signs or seeing actual signs can make them fanatics, the younger fanatics. And I think that's kind of like how I was, not like the fanatical side, but how I was seeing it, where it's like I see the scheming happening from the Ben and Gesserits, but then I'm seeing stuff where you're like, okay, that's a little bit too the prophetic Messiah like happening. Does he actually have? Is he actually him? Like, and it was. I thought it was really well done, balancing those two. I mean, Florence Pugh when she's talking to her dad, the Emperor, and the question is like, what would you have? How would you handle this whole situation? And she's like, don't kill him. Like that's gonna make them stronger. Don't suppress the Fremen. That's gonna make their fanaticism and religion stronger. Have a war break out and then swoop in to bring peace.
Hmm.
Like just going about that way, almost in a way of being like, show them that you're actually what they think of as the Messiah, not Paul. Paul brought war. Paul brought death,
Mm.
destruction, all this stuff. And even Paul's battle with this of being like, for I guess the first, I want to say 2/3 of the movie of being like this prophecy's fake, it's not real, XYZ, and then that's like the first third. The second third is him kind of realizing this could be a tool I could use to enact my revenge, and free these people. To then being like, okay, I know this is fake, but I'm gonna go all in on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard because it's like it's a path that Paul doesn't really want to walk down, but I think he realizes that he has to be kind of become this chosen one to these people in order for their dream of like a better planet to kind of like come to light. He even like because when he drinks the water of life, it's like he realizes like there's a slim chance that like I forget how it went down. There's like a slim chance that they're gonna be able to like win this battle, and I think like the like I think he calls it like they go like the golden path or the golden line or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, the
And
straight line.
it's
Yeah.
like he realizes how much he's gonna have to sacrifice in order to walk that line in order to
Yeah.
kind of you know make his goals come true. I think it's really hard to like see him having to become the person that he does not want to become, but knowing he
I
has to.
yeah. I think it's that coming to terms of taking part of the plans, because I mean his mom has her own plan, the Bene
Mm-hmm.
Gesserits have their own plan. House Atreides, Gurney, he has his own idea of what's going to happen. They're all like kind of polling at Paul, and his whole life has been essentially forming him to fit these plans, be a piece in these plans. So I think it's him coming to terms with, yes, that's what's been happening, but I'm gonna kind of take the reins and do follow, if you will, to then get to my what my goal is. And I think that really comes to play in the culmination where he confronts the Emperor, Duke Harkonnen, and the Reverend Mother, the Ben Gesserit, where he uses the voice on her and knocks her back. I think it was really showing like the, hey, like like I'm taking control over this, over my life and what's going on here. Even though, like you said, he realizes how much he has to sacrifice. He realizes how much is already kind of lain before him in that small golden line to reach paradise for the Fremen, to get peace, get revenge, uh, even gain power. But even his idea of what power is so different from what everyone else says. Like he's like, the power is to be able to destroy what you control, and it doesn't seem like he even cares that much about it. Like with the whole spice thing, how he threatens to blow up all the spice fields. And that's like one of the points I laughed in the movie because everyone freaks out. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, hold on, you're gonna do
Yeah.
what now? And
Yeah, I feel like
it's great. It's great.
yeah, that's like such an interesting point in the movie because it's just like because that really is where like all the power is. Like that's where all the money comes from. I don't know how much they talk about in the movie, but like that's basically how they do their space transportation is through the
In the
spice. Like
first one, they do.
the
Yeah.
spice is literally like everything. So it's like Paul's decision to go and like destroy the spice harvesters and like all the spice. It's just like that's a really kind of crazy plan. I feel and it's like I
Hmm.
get it. It's like they're trying to free their planet, but at the same time, it's like oh man. I think that really kind of
I
sets up towards like the third movie a little bit, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
All right, so where were we? Where
I
were
don't know.
we?
I think we were talking about Paul and his roles in the movie.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Okay.
yeah, kind of going off of what you were talking about a little bit, I found it really interesting, kind of how Paul is not only kind of trying to be a part of, the Fremen, and then also kind of like become this spiritual figure to them, and also just trying to take like the head of the galaxy in a sense. But he's also, coming off of being the son to the Duke Leto and kind of taking up that mantle as well. I really
Mhm.
like the scenes where like he took out his ring and he's like, I found my way. I
Mhm.
like that. That was a great scene. And also towards the end where he like uses his seal to like send out this letter to the emperor. That was also an awesome scene where he like reads it and just drops it. That was really cool too. So kind of just like seeing all of these different aspects of Paul kind of coming together and seeing kind of how they
Yeah.
clash with each other,
Mhm.
and kind of just seeing where that ends up towards the end of the movie, I think is really cool. I think one of the another cool scene is just the whole the arena fight scene with the Harkonnens or Harkonnens.
Transit scene.
How do you say it? Because I know they say
Har
it differently.
so I've always said it the Harkonnens, I think.
Harkonnens. Do
Yeah,
they say
and that's
Hark?
only they say Harkonnens. I've only
Okay.
said it Harkonnens because that was in the original Dune.
Yeah, the Lynch one.
Yep,
Yeah,
but
there's a little
I
bit of
guess it could
difference.
go either way because I think I've heard they say it like different ways within the movie as well, just depending
Okay.
on who. And I think that just shows like the pervasive culture and going on within the empire. 'Cause
Right.
that's the whole like I think allure of Dune with the all the history and religions being
Hmm.
smashed together into this giant human empire. You know,
Yeah, definitely. What did you think about, I guess, Austin Butler's character and also this whole like the whole arena fight scene?
the whole okay. So first, I really like that we got more of the Harkonnens. I really like that we got more of their home world. We got to see kind of not how it's like to them. It's not like they're doing evil things. It's just a way of life
Yeah, it's
type
part of their
thing.
culture in a little sense.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's part of their culture. I think I really liked Austin Butler's character and portrayal of his character. I think there's only one point where I was like, it sounds like he has that Elvis draw to it. But then I think that was like within the first couple scenes of seeing him, and then since then it was a lot more of like the distinct Harkonnen accent, if you will.
Yeah, he sounds like
You know,
Skarsgård a little bit, which is interesting. It's like
he
an
does,
Elvis
and
Skarsgård.
I
It's
liked it.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I liked it because it also I think it showed I heard a couple critiques where it's like there's so many different languages. Why are like all these main characters speaking in English? I'm like, well, one if you look at it in the context of upper class versus lower class, you're gonna have people who are just a random Fremen or a random Harkonnen. They're gonna be speaking their native tongue while you have the rich upper dukes and duchesses and emperors and empresses being able to speak multiple languages, but also it's showing that like the main tongue is like the English tongue that the emperor uses. So when talking to other house heads, dukes, whatever you want to call them, barons, they're going to be speaking in the same thing. And then even with those who are uppers within, I guess, like the Fremen society, I think that shows also the reach of the Bene Gesserit, how they're able
Mm.
to, you know, learn and still communicate with others. But I thought it was Austin Butler. To get back on track, I thought Austin Butler did great.
Mm.
He really shows like a sociopath, like an actual crazy individual who, at points is like, I'm gonna kill my uncle, I'm gonna drown him myself. To other points, just standing back and watching him get killed and laughing about it. And then, to some points, and I guess in the whole arena fight scene, you know, one of the prisoners was not drugged, and he was supposed to be drugged, so it'd be an easy fight. And he realized what happened. He realized, hey, this is my uncle kind of messing with me, possibly trying to kill me. But I'm gonna take pleasure in absolutely destroying this guy as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing where it's like this mixture, almost like a bipolar type thing of going to the extreme of like, how dare he try and do that something like that to me, and being like, yeah, this is sick.
Hmm.
So I really liked how he portrayed it. I really liked how he shows just like this ruthless, not play by the rules type thing. Like I think the Fremen complain about it where they're like they didn't even come down and fight us with honor. They
Hmm.
stayed in their ships, and I'm like, yeah, like it shows that he just is about getting the whatever he wants done by any means necessary. And what is gosh, when he kills that one Fremen lady,
Well, the
where he's like,
flamethrower.
oh yeah, where he's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I know all I need to know. Now it's just pleasure. Now it's just for fun. Like I think that was the like what really showed how chilling he is. I mean, I guess besides the opening scene where he's getting like the ritual paint on him, and he turns to his pets and he's like, "Wait, what sort of you want a liver? What do you want? You know, I'll bring you stuff back." And then he just starts killing his servants, and I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
it really shows. I think it's not like a they just kills people to kill people. It's really showing one how actually evil he is, two how detached he is, but also three just kind of the Harkonnen way. Then we also see the bear and his uncle kill people off screen as well. And I guess we get that with his brother, his older brother. Uh,
Yeah, Dave Bautista's character.
yeah, yeah, when
Yeah.
he kills a couple people for failing him as well. You see that it's like they have a very much like death if you don't do your duty type thing going on in their society. Almost more so like Roman, I would say, with
Yeah,
how they have
definitely.
the Colosseum and how they fight, everything like that. It's pretty cool, pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I guess kind of like wrapping up in a little bit, I think it'd be kind of important to talk about the ending,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
in general. I think it is kind of one of the, it's, the wrap up to at least book one. Um,
Mhm.
it happens a little differently in the book compared to
Mhm.
this film version. I don't fully remember, as I was saying like before we started filming, exactly how it
Mhm.
ends. Um, I did. I think I did like it. I liked the final battle. I liked the one-on-one fight between Austin Butler's character and Chalamet. Um,
Mhm.
I think I only have two real critiques about this movie, and as I said
Mhm.
before, they're very small. I think the time frame that Paul like rises from like this kid, like this outcast, like
Mhm.
this person kind of joining the Fremens to like this prophet figure, this
Mhm.
messiah, and kind of like becoming, this like freedom fighter in a sense. Like obviously he had training before he met the
Yeah.
Fremen, but I think just him gaining this much power in like five
Mhm.
months is kind of a little bit of a stretch, but it's not like one that I think like ruins the movie at all. It's just kind of like Paul really goes from like 0 to 100 real quick. Like he's like this little kid in the
Yeah.
first movie, and he's like he really he really grows. And I think like that is I think a compliment between the first movie and the second
Mhm.
movie. Like you really do see Paul grow from like
Mhm.
more of like this teenager to filling in his father's shoes in the second one. But
Mhm.
I also feel like there's a lot of things that happen in part two, and I think sometimes it happens like a little bit too fast in terms of
Mhm.
Paul's kind of character arc.
Mhm.
And I think the second critique I have about the film is I think the battle at the very end happens way too quickly. I would have liked like
Mhm.
10 more minutes of that final battle.
Yes.
Like I think because kind of thinking back to the first movie, like the attack of the Atreides, like I'm pretty sure like that was even longer. Like you see a little bit more
Yeah.
like infiltration and stuff like that. It really is like in part two, kind of the explosion, and then the worms come in, and then they infiltrate the base, and then it's just
Mhm.
kind of like the one-on-one fight with Paul and Austin Butler's character. I think I would have liked a little bit more of kind of more battle scenes between the Fremen and the Harkonnens and
Yeah.
the Imperial Guard, I guess you could call them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The Sardaukar.
yeah,
I Yeah, I would agree with that. It does, and I think it's almost like it's weird because I liked it and I didn't like it because of that. I liked that it was almost. I would like to see a little bit more of a struggle with the Fremen taking on everyone, because it does seem like it's just the worms and then you know. But I think it was kind of a testament of being like,
they
uh,
found their power, like their desert
they
power.
found their power, and it's the power like everyone was saying in the first one, it's the power of the desert type
Hmm.
deal. Because they no one even with all this advanced technology, it's like you can't cross those sandstorms,
Yeah,
but these guys can, and so I think it was like a testament to that, um, but also showing how pompous, and I think this was almost kind of uh, not foretold. I forget the word I'm trying to say here, but essentially foreshadowed. There we go.
There you go.
Foreshadowed with like the nuclear warheads,
Yeah.
the atomic warheads. They're like it was in that obvious looking bunker in this rock, and he's like, yeah, no one thought to look there. And I think that kind of shows the why it was such a quick battle because no one thought that all the Fremen on the planet would attack when not only all the Harkonnens are there, but all like the Emperor's army is there. So I think it was kind of showing like their pride, their pompousness, their no one would even dare is their downfall. That was their downfall. And the I guess the Gurney and Josh Brolin and Batista that fight was really quick.
Mm.
The death was really quick, but I also think it was really to show how it's like even though there are these massive revenge tales going on where like thousands upon millions are going to war, planetary wars over this. It's just over in a second. It's like almost like is it even worth it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the one-on-one fight scene thought was really good, especially I don't like in movies. I hated this when they did it in the Harry Potter book, how it was like the big bad versus your hero, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's standing around watching them. But this makes more sense in the sense of like Paul needs to do this to needs to do a one-on-one battle trial by combat essentially to gain that seat on the Emperor's seat. You know, so it makes sense in that way and how everyone's respecting it and backing off. But I really like how there almost is like a change. You see a change in him when he comes in and kills the Baron. He's like, you know, now you'll die like an animal, and you see like this chilling thing of him there, but then also how he deals with the Sadukar and all that, where he, you know, he's like, hey, take all these guys as prisoners. You all can just kill a Sadukar. Go for it. Like I don't care. It really shows more so I was becoming more of a leader, even though it's kind of bad. And there she goes. I don't know what she's up to, but and I guess I agree with you as well concerning the time jumps. I thought that all things considered, it wasn't the greatest. Uh, Even though I caught on quickly how there was a lot of time that happened between these jumps. I think just the average person watching this, who isn't familiar with the books, isn't familiar with the original film, would be like, that's weird. Like we went from here to here, and they're implying that all this time, they're not really putting out there all this time has passed, but context clues point to it, and I think that could go over a lot of people's heads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are my thoughts, I guess, on the final parts. I guess the another critique for me would be the change in the ending, just with Chani, Zendaya's character.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna open the door, let her out real quick. Give me one sec. You need to go out, baby. Here you go. Here you go. And we're back. But the change with her character of almost becoming a little bit too hurt about the Paul thing. I think you know, her anti him going giving into the prophecy. That makes sense, especially with the character and how it's written in the book. Um, Her getting way too hurt about him asking for somebody's hand in marriage. Like it's very obvious that one, I thought it was very obvious he was doing this to like for a political move. And in the book, at least, his sister, I believe, talks with her. Is like, hey, like explains like why he has to do this, why he is doing it, and also like, hey, like history will remember us as wives. I think that's like the last line of the book, which shows like the power that, you know, even though she's not going to be the queen empress or whatever, like she's still going to be known in history.
Mm-hmm.
And giving almost like power and credence to those unnamed but powerful women, almost like a almost Bene Gesserit in that sense. But in service of the movie, just going off of the movie, I think it works having her go off on her own, especially with showing her throughout the movie being like the only one being saying like this prophecy's stupid. just used to control us, and then everyone else falling for it, and her being very anti it the entire time.
Mhm.
So it does make sense at that point that she goes her own way.
I thought she was gonna die at the very end. I was like, "There's no way she's
Yeah.
dying." I thought that she was gonna get taken off by the sandworm. I was like, "What is happening?" There was a couple moments like towards the end. I was like, "I'm not really sure where this is exactly going. I don't know if it's gonna end." I thought it was gonna end kind of drastically different than the book. There was a minute where I thought Chalamet's character was gonna die. I was like, "'Cause he gets stabbed," and I was like, "Are they gonna? Is he not gonna
Yeah,
make
I
it
was like, are
towards
they
the
gonna
third movie?" I was like,
kill him
"What's
off
happening
right
here?"
here?
Yeah. One interesting thing that I read was that I think the final move that Paul does on Butler's character is the same one that he learns with Gurney in the first movie, where like he gets
Mhm.
him down and he's like, "Oh, I gotcha," and then Gurney's like, "If you look closely, like I would have killed you in battle." And
Mhm.
I'll have to rewatch the first one and then also the second one too, but it might have been the same move, but I'm not really sure.
I'm pretty sure it's either the same move or it's like just
It's
him
similar.
learning and expanding on it. Because I think
Hmm.
that's the biggest thing they were talking about with growth with Paul in from the first to the second. Like he's already trained, he's already well like proficient with his style of fighting, but this is growing and building upon what he has with the Fremen style. And I think that may be it. Like it's the same thing in principle, but he does it with a
He
Fremen
does it his
flair,
way.
if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does it his way, and that's the big thing. I think at the end of the movie, you see he's playing into again the plans that have been placed before him, his path being written out. He's playing into it, but doing it his own way.
Hmm.
Like it kind of seemed like throwing everything in the shuffle of it all. I mean, like you said, the Bene Gesserit and the Emperor were there to kind of clean up all their scheming going on, and he comes in and absolutely flips everything on their head. And I think with Bene Gesserit, the Reverend Mother talks to Florence Pugh at one point, and is when Florence Pugh is like, "Did you scheme? Did you have House Atreides killed?" And she's like, "Yeah, like duh, of course it was us." Um, because we have all this other stuff going on, and then also your dad's gonna not be emperor for much longer. But don't worry,
Yeah,
like you'll still have power if you do what we want. And then having it flip to being Paul being like, no,
it's yeah, I have the
yeah,
power. Yeah.
yeah, I have the power. I'm taking her, so your name could live on or whatever. But it really kind of, I think that was almost like a somewhat of going with what the Bene Gesserit wanted, but also having that curveball. If anything, it's going for the his mom, who is now the other Reverend Mother,
Hmm.
which that was also interesting. The little psychic talk conversation that the two Reverend Mothers have, where
Hmm.
she's like, "You picked the wrong side." He's like, "Well, you should know there are no sides in this. It's just us."
Yeah, she literally like Paul's mother kind of just becomes the basically just takes her spot. Like
Yeah,
the Reverend.
I
Yeah.
which you definitely get the how she is, like you said earlier, like she is the villain of this movie. Especially, it was chilling how she's like, "Hey, we need to spread the word of this prophecy to the non-believers. We're gonna start with the weak ones." I'm like, "Geez, like
Hmm.
you could just." And I love the vocal changes and layering they do when she uses the voice and when she's talking to herself, and then also the conversations she has with the unborn sister at that point. It's
Yeah,
really
that was really cool. The images were really cool. They were like creepy, very like 21 Space Odyssey. That was
I was
one
gonna
Space
say, yeah,
Odyssey. But kind of
Terrence
adding,
Malick.
yeah, adding to that, like there's like I like how they had scenes where like she's talking to like the unborn child, but they don't say what she's saying, so it just looks like she's like talking to herself, and she's just like walking around. She's like, shh, or like be quiet. She's like,
Yeah,
it makes her
yeah.
character seem like so much creepier than I imagined when I was reading in the book.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean they have people you see people react around it. That's the other thing. Like this is
Yeah,
actually her talking, so people are reacting like looking at like,
what is
"Whoa."
going on? Yeah.
Yeah. But I do like the decision of not having the um Paul's sister talk. Besides the one vision, it's not her speaking at all. Which I like because then it's like almost like a translation thing going between Paul's talking to the mom to talk to the sister, which then also I think adds like the layer of distrust of like, is she actually telling me what my sister is thinking and wants, or is
That's
she
a good
just
point. Yeah.
because there were points where I thought looking at how Timothy Chalamet was acting, where his mom would be like, "She wants you to come with us." It looked like he was almost just like, "She didn't say that."
Yeah, yeah.
Almost like knowing like, is this my sister talking, or is this my mom just trying to manipulate me even more?
Mhm.
And I guess if anything, this movie just shows like the real power of those behind the scenes, like manipulating, making things happen, all that jazz, and doing things that you wouldn't expect to be power moves. You would think having all the atomic warheads would be the most powerful thing in the world, or having the biggest army, but it's like, no, you just gotta, get close to whoever's in power, essentially whisper in their ear, manipulate them, find out what their weaknesses are, and then do that enough times, and also make a few religions and prophecies pop up. Like you rule it all.
Hmm. Oh yeah, that's great. I guess a couple popcorn things that I really like that we didn't touch on is just the
Hmm.
whole the scene where they're destroying the spice harvester, and they have like the rocket launcher. Really cool scene, really cool
Really
action
cool scene.
scene. I like that scene a lot. Um, I'm glad that Gurney gets his like little banjo. We kind of see him, kind of almost seems like he's in his prime, like he's like this smuggler,
Yup.
and I was like, oh man, that was really cool. I'm trying to think what else. I bet there's probably a bunch of stuff that I'm forgetting. Um,
It's the whole. Honestly, the whole movie is just a big highlight for me.
hmm
I think the music so good. I cannot go on enough how well done the music is, how well done incorporating the themes from the first movie are. Because there was a very short piece for Shell, which is like Shell and Paul's, or why am I saying Shell? Shawnee's and Paul's love theme, and then also like the main theme from Dune, where you have all the vocals like that, the Middle Eastern rises and falls with the vocal. I don't even know the proper terms, but it's really cool how they incorporated that, and but didn't make it overused. And I don't know. I could just keep going on and on about this score. I won't for now.
Yeah, no, I really like the score. It was really good. I think similar to like Oppenheimer, it really seems like everyone's kind of working at like such a high level, like everyone's putting in their A game, whether just like in just like the smallest kind of the areas to like even like the more bigger areas. It's just like everything just seemed perfect.
Yes.
And it's something like that is really cool to see, especially
Mhm.
given the fact that it might be a trilogy. Hopefully, it's a trilogy. It probably will be a
Fingers
trilogy,
crossed.
but just
Fingers
like
crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed. Just knowing that as long as the third one lands, and I'm sure it will, as long as
Mhm.
Denis Villeneuve directs it, it's gonna be it's gonna be a really cool trilogy. I think it's gonna be really
Yeah.
special, and I'm really curious to see what he's gonna do after he's done
Mhm.
with Dune. I think that he might end up doing like a smaller project. I couldn't imagine him doing something like something large after this. I think he's gonna do
Yeah.
something more
No,
like Prisoners or something like that, just like a
feel
nice
like you're gonna
palate
get
cleanser.
gassed out after
Yeah.
doing this. Yeah. No, hopefully, to be honest, I think you could do a third one, but also this could be a nice like. This is all that happens on Atreides, or not
Mhm.
Atreides. Sorry, this is all that happens on Arrakis. And then, I mean, what his mom said about like if Paul attacks them, it'll be the start of the Holy War. It's almost like saying new chapter coming in.
Mhm.
So there could be a third. There could also not be one. I hope there's a third. I really do.
Yeah. I think he'll end up doing like one more just to tie up some loose
Yeah.
ends, and then I think
Mhm.
he'll be done. I think
Mhm.
three is good. A nice trilogy, nice
Oh
little
yeah,
bow.
enough time to read the rest of the books.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, because he said they're gonna be adapting Messiah, and there's still the Children of Dune. Like there's still
I've
a
heard
third
other
book.
rumors that they might incorporate a little bit of Children of Dune too. Like it's
Yeah,
Messiah, but they might add some things from yeah,
well,
Children
because
of Dune.
Messiah is the shortest book.
Hmm.
Because most of the heavy lifting, at least world building wise, is done in book one. So I guess even in this, the most heavy lifting of the world building is done in Dune Part One and parts of Part Two. So I think that if he does do Messiah, it's going to. They definitely could fit the third book in there, or parts of the third book in there. Let's go for 4. Let's make 4.
Let's
movies.
do it. Let's do all of them. Why not? But yeah, awesome. Is there anything else that's on your mind in terms of this movie, Lex? Before we close it.
I really wish that we got an Alejandro Jodorowsky Dune, a little nod to his vision of surrealism. But other than that, I really like this movie. I'm definitely seeing again this time in IMAX, and I can't wait for it to come out so we can binge all 3 Dune movies.
No. Maybe before the third one comes out or after. Maybe we'll do like a large episode where we just talk about Dune for like 4 hours. We'll talk about the Lynch one. Maybe we'll talk about the book. We'll talk about part 1, part 2,
Dude,
and then
the
maybe
day
3.
before we watch Dune part
3. We'll do a mega episode.
We talk about the book. We talk about Lynch. We talk about part 1, part 2, all in one go. We say, all right, good night, everyone. Then we come back.
And then we go watch part 3, and then we'll come back and talk about part 3.
Yep.
That might be what we have to do. I'll have to catch up. I need to read at least. I need to read Messiah. I need to read.
I need to reread them all. It's been. I think I was like 15, 16 when I read them.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read the first Dune book.
Dude. Oh, yeah, definitely need to get back into rereading them, get through them, and then I guess. Yeah, we could do a quick recap of the books at some point.
We'll slowly turn into like a book podcast.
Yeah, we're just gonna quickly only do books that have movie adaptations to only books.
There you go. Found our niche.
Only books.
All right, awesome. Yeah, as I said, really enjoyed this movie. For me, part 1 was a 10 out of 10. I think it's only fair to make this a 10 out of 10. I don't think my small criticisms would drop it down any lower. But I am really curious to know how my reaction will be after a second viewing, especially in IMAX and kind of seeing everything. Yeah, that's my score. Do you have any final thoughts?
Part 1, 10 out of 10. Part 2, initial reaction to it would be a 10 out of 10. I'm interested to see if watching it again, I'm gonna be like, oh, pacing wasn't the greatest, but that's also I don't think matters because first time watching it, it just flew by.
Yeah.
I thought the pacing was great. It did not feel like a 3-hour movie.
Yeah. Do you think you like this one more than the part 1, or do you think they're pretty equal?
I think they're pretty equal.
Yeah.
Personally, I think they both are beautiful in their own right. Talking about cinematography, well, they're distinct but also the same when it comes to cinematography. I think they expand upon the costumes and set design from the first one. They expand upon the history, the lore, the religion, the political aspects of the first one. They honestly just took what the first one was and built off of it. And I think they're both incredibly well done. And I don't want to choose one or the other.
No, I agree. I think they belong together.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you can watch the first one, roll it right into the second one, and not be taken out of it in one bit.
It's very like Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Edition.
Is this the new Lord of the Rings?
That's what a lot of people have been saying, and I'm here for it. We haven't had a good trilogy in a while, so.
What are you talking about?
What was the last great trilogy? Maybe Dark Knight.
Well, Paddington 3 is coming out soon.
Oh, well,
maybe, I'd say, personally, I would say better than Dune.
Better than Dune?
Think about it, Paddington 2, Dune 2, Paddington 2 every
they're
time.
On the same
I'm kidding. I can't compare the two.
You can't
They're
compare
great,
the two.
No,
Paddington's definitely better.
Funny enough, when I bought the tickets, my app was just showing me the Wonka stuff.
Oh, really?
I did not buy Wonka again, did I? But we're good. It was just funny seeing Timothy in that to then this.
I haven't seen Wonka yet. I want to see it. I heard it's fun.
It's really great. Well, we should talk about it. At a different
We'll
time.
have to do once it's like on streaming, or I can buy it on Blu-ray, or like rent
Yeah.
it. We'll talk about it. I think that'll be a fun one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Cool stuff. So yeah, I think next time we're gonna be talking about a little movie called The Platform. It was my idea. I think Lex is gonna like it quite a lot. It's kind of a horror movie that kind of like creeps into the back of my mind. I like it. I like it quite a lot. It's a fun little movie. So we're gonna talk about next time. It's been a pleasure, Lex. I will see you in the future.
Always been a pleasure. Yeah. Let me get after that. The platform, and hopefully it shakes me up as much as it did you.
I think it will. I think it will. All right.
Yes, that's what
That's
I'm
good.
gonna do.